Excellent. We're on page 68.
Oh, yeah.
We're up to question 194.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. We're almost at the end of the creed.
Should I take my beanie off so we're not a couple of beanie boys?
I want people to know it's cold.
It's very cold.
It's cold.
They can see your breath. 194. Yeah. What is the meaning of communion of saints?
Yeah, so we're just finishing off the church. So we've been talking about...
I would have thought the modernists had done that.
We're going through the creed and we're talking about the Holy Spirit, and this is the sort of end of that section. So we've just talked about the Pope and the church and all this sort of stuff, and now we're saying, I believe in the communion of saints. What does that mean? This expression indicates, first of all, the common sharing of all the members of the church in holy things, the sancta, the faith, the sacraments, especially the Eucharist, the charisms and other spiritual gifts. At the root of this communion is love, which does not seek its own interests, but leads the faithful to hold everything in common, even to put one's own material goods at the service of the most poor.
Do you ever feel like you could just be a saint and it's actually very easy, but then you find yourself not doing it over and over again?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like...
I'm really struck
be charitable.
But
don't do those things. Do these things instead. You're like, that doesn't sound so hard.
Hold on.
But then it sucks.
I'm sorry. This is uncharitable.
What?
No, I was feeling emotional before, and I sent someone a text backing down, and I now regret it, and it's made things a bit awkward. It's not it's a different guy. It's a guy.
It's not your wife.
It's not my. No, it happens not to be my wife. Although I did send her a big gushy text as well, saying I love you so much. But it's like, man, sometimes I'll be like, I'll get a run on. I'll come out of confession, and I managed to get the whole weekend, I think, without any grievous, like up until Sunday morning when I fucked up in communion. Anyway, it's a long story, and I don't have to go on. I brought people along to mass, and I don't want to cause a scandal, but I was like, I had maybe 48 hours of saintly living, or living that was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, and it just felt very.
Well, that's a good start.
Just keep doing this forever. That's about the longest I've ever made it. Do you know what I mean? And we could just do it. We could just choose to be saints.
So,
and we should all be there for one another to join in that communion of saints, like a communion of bros and broettes. It's to lady. Just being there for each other, helping us join in the sancta, to share of it and to not.
So one of the meanings of the term is, yes, the sharing of things. So that's the stuff we all have in common.
Communion, community.
Right. So it doesn't. Community. So part of it is like we're not the saints in the sense of like we are holy in this way that we're talking about it, right? We're the saints because we share in the things that are holy, right?
Yeah.
Like. So we're sharing in holy things. And so in that sense, anybody who's part of the church...
Saint, sanctus, same root word, right?
Yeah. Has those holy things available to them. And of course, the next part, which is what else does the communion of saints mean, which I'm just going to preempt you with.
Hey, what else does the communion of saints mean?
This expression also refers to the communion between holy persons, the sancti, that is, between those who by grace are united to the dead and the risen Christ. Some are pilgrims on earth, others having passed in this life are undergoing purification and are helped also by our prayers. Others already enjoy the glory of God and intercede for us. All of these together form in Christ one family, the church, to the praise and glory of the Trinity. So that's the other expression, which is like what we commonly think of, which is just the saints, right? Of which I do not count myself one, and clearly you do not either yet.
Not right now, no.
Yeah.
But sometimes, when you're deep in that Holy Spirit moment, sure, you feel like, oh, this is a foretaste. This is a foretaste.
Yeah.
It's great. I think I have that more than, maybe I'm deranged about the extent to which I experienced that.
Well, we're all called to that life. Yeah, we're all called to that life of sanctity, of not just sharing in the holy things, the goods of the church, but of actually being animated by charity, like the saints in heaven and on earth are.
The church triumphant.
Yes, but we're called in the church militant to live.
We are the church militant.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, the church
suffering. Yeah, but it's not. Yes, but it's not excluding that there are people who are united by grace at the moment to Christ, who are animated by charity in this way, and that's what we're supposed to live our lives.
And who we ask for help.
Yeah.
Which is why I think we're moving into Saint number 1. Well, Saint number early on in the Saint numbers, because there's the proto-martyrs.
Well, so yeah, we're about to move into Mary.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that she's linked with the communion of saints because, of course, she is the greatest saint. So in that sense, she is saint number one. But she's not chronologically the first saint. No. I mean, she kind of is, but, you know, it gets wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey.
Where's that from?
Doctor Who.
New Doctor Who, too.
Yeah.
Man, I hate the English. I watched like one season of that Doctor Who when it came back, and I loved it. And then
it's not good.
Something deep inside me turned.
Yeah,
and I see that reboot of Doctor Who as like the entire encapsulation of what is wrong with
modernity.
The people of Britain.
Yeah.
No, just specifically.
Well, very
contemporary,
very modern.
Britain.
Yeah, yes, very true. Yeah.
They can't do sentiment properly. They have no human feeling. It's all cleverness and tricks and bullshit. And the English, man. Excuse me. It's so shit.
It's bad. It's truly bad. But we're called to love these people in the community of saints, of course.
Love them with the harsh discipline of a backhanded slap across the chops, I should like to think. In what sense is the Blessed Virgin Mary the mother of the church?
The Blessed Virgin Mary is the mother of the church in the order of grace because she gave birth to Jesus, the Son of God, the head of the body, which is the church. When he was dying on the cross, Jesus gave his mother to his disciple with the words, "Behold your mother."
Specifically John, but we're reading that as everybody?
Yeah, so he gives, like,
It says
because
man.
John is in place of the church there in a sort of typological way.
I'm saying it's John. It's not scripturally John, is it?
No, it is John. Yeah.
It is John?
Yeah. It's the disciple that he loved,
Which
which is John.
tradition reads that as John.
It's the guy who wrote. Yeah, the one that he loved. It was me.
Yeah, I've always thought that was kind of funny.
But yeah, so like Mary is given to the church there. Like it's not just John the disciple. It's, well, yeah, so obviously in the order of grace, she gives birth to Christ, so she becomes our mother in the new life that we have of grace through Christ. But then also Christ sort of emphasizes that on the cross where he says, you know, he's doing the thing, he's saving the world. And that's the point where he says, "Behold your mother."
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot in recent weeks about how Mary is my mother.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have another mother as well.
Yes.
But that...
in the order of the flesh, you have a mother, but in the order of grace, you have another mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that then it's kind of hard when you hold your mother up to Mary. And that's a cause for prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. But I mean, it's...
But it raises up a feminine example of motherhood that is a good in the way that, I mean, God is a father and you're held up to that standard.
Yeah, and you're not meant to use it as like a way of like running down your mother for failing or anything like that, right?
No,
because obviously
it's just a good time.
She's the greatest saint, so like there is no one that could compare in that sense.
But I think it's important that we don't... You know, some people have an idealization of people in their lives, whether that's their father or their mother, and like we're all fallen.
Yeah,
we all have failings, and Mary obviously doesn't have failings in that way, and it can be. There are fruits of that.
That's supposed to be a solace, right?
Yeah,
like that's supposed to be
comfort.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, when all else fails, I can like fly to her.
But there's a toxicity of like, my mummy's perfect, right?
I mean, I'm aware of it.
Have you seen Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Well, I think of Buster
sure.
and Lucille and the relationship that they have, which is is held up as a particularly unhealthy one. Mother boy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there is a healthy distance that one should have with one's parents, turning one's eyes to Mary.
Well,
I'm taking this in an odd direction.
Not one should have with anyone, right? And like the Psalms talk about this, like, don't put your trust in princes, and people do this all the time with the government, which is like, look to the government as the source of all their solutions, all this sort of stuff, right? And you should not idealize anybody because like we are all sinners, and it doesn't matter if it's your mum or Trump or whoever.
That love and idealization is not the same thing.
Yeah. And that in terms of a moral example, in terms of an example of somebody whose life you want to imitate, it should be people like the saints. Because it's like, well, Francis of Assisi was not the kind of person who had, a lot of worldly power or anything like that. But like, okay, well, he's divested himself of these things for the love of Christ.
Which is not to say that you can't be like St. Louis and have the power and the glory.
Yeah, and use it, very badly, but for the right reasons. So
I don't know enough about St. Louis. Hey, how does the Virgin Mary help the church?
After the ascension of her son, the Virgin Mary aided the beginnings of the church with her prayers. Even after her assumption into heaven, she continues to intercede for her children, to be a model of faith and charity for all, and to exercise over them a salutary influence. Deriving from the superabundant merits of Christ. The faithful see in Mary an image and an anticipation of the resurrection that awaits them, and they invoke her as an advocate, helper, benefactress, and mediatrix.
A lot of stuff in here that the Protestants don't go in for.
Yes, lots of it.
I mean, that first bit, how as a Prot, who has very little to do with Mary, how are you reading that Behold Your Mother section? Is this just John's going to look after her physically?
Basically, yeah.
So a narrow reading?
I would say so.
Okay. And then a Protestant doesn't believe that people are animated in heaven interceding for us?
No. Well, I mean, generally a Protestant wouldn't. I mean, I find it as it's a problematic lens through which to read Catholicism only as what would a Protestant disagree with here?
What would an Orthodox disagree with here?
Nothing.
Okay. What would a Coptic disagree with here?
I mean, essentially nothing. Yeah. There would be some differences of opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, what would a Cathar think about all this?
Well, I mean, I think what might be more interesting to say, what would a Muslim think about all this?
Well, they love Mary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be a whole lot that they would.
They don't think. I don't know if Muslims believe in interceding to.
No, I don't think they do, but they do believe in the Assumption, I think, which is very strange. But in any case, what do we believe? We believe that Mary at the beginning of the church was present in the church.
Yeah,
and she interceded through her prayers when she was alive. I
want to bring out that there's something sort of mediatrix is. Like, we talk a lot about how, like, Christ is the way and the truth and the number one.
Yeah.
And that for Mary to mediate, to be the mediatrix, it's a big claim.
So, yeah, it's an interesting word, and it's a controversial word.
Just think about dominatrix. It's one of the only other titles for a woman that ends in trix. Can you think of a third?
Benefactrix.
Good point. Well made.
Well, I mean, it's a Latin declension, I think, of the word, which is why it's not common. But the thing with mediatrix is that there is a
woman mediator.
There is a sort of pseudo-heretical movement around this, which is like to push for a definition of Mary as the mediatrix of all grace, which is a title that she already has, but to use this as like the Pope should pronounce this infallibly or something. And the confusion there lies in that we don't actually believe that Mary is like necessary for salvation in the way that Christ is necessary for salvation, right? Like Christ is the one mediator of the new covenant.
Yes.
We call Mary the mediatrix of grace.
Co-mediatrix?
No.
Is what people want.
But yes, exactly. But we would say no, but we would say that she is the mediatrix of grace in the sense that what we say about Mary, we say about Christ. And that only through her yes do we get Christ.
Well, yes, but mediator. Mary doesn't die on the cross.
Exactly. So it's not her suffering is not salvific, but her yes is important, and it's in that sense that we can look to her as a mediator, but not in the same sense that Christ is a mediator. It's such a complicated point, and
we don't have to go heaps into it, but I think it's worth saying that this is not like. There's a lot here to look into.
The co-redemptrix thing is like there's a sophisticated theological underpinning to it that I find is more problematic to explain than it's worth using the term for.
All right. I mean, benefactress doesn't have any. Advocate, helper. These are all.
Yeah, and these are all ancient titles of Mary. Yeah.
Yeah, but we would say that like St. John is our advocate.
Right, yeah. Any saint is an advocate helper. In a sense. Yeah,
St.
exactly.
John is our benefactor.
Yes.
We wouldn't say St. John is our mediator, would we?
Well, I mean, in a sense, we would say
what is it to mediate? It's to dole out or to...
Yeah, so Christ is the only mediator in the new covenant, right? Like, and this is quite clear in the Bible. But there is a way that we could talk about Mary or any of the saints as a mediator of grace because they intercede for us, and it's that sense in which we would use the word. But I think that people legitimately find the word confusing.
Yep.
And when you say things like mediatrix or co-redemptrix or something like that.
It can sound like Mary is a goddess.
Exactly. And she's not the fourth person of the Trinity, and that's where it gets confusing. But it's also hard because Catholics don't want to say too little about her, right?
Yeah. We don't want to run that. We don't want to run her down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the old joke is like Fulton Sheen is talking to a Protestant or something, and the Protestant says, like, why do you say these things about Mary? And Fulton Sheen says, well, if somebody started slagging off my mother, I'd have some words to say. And I imagine
classic Fulton Sheen. He would have said it a little more.
Yeah.
Someone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Slagging off my mother.
It's quite good.
I've been working on my man. When I had I got into Fulton Sheen in a big way in lockdown, and I just thought when I came out of lockdown and this was all fucking over, I'm gonna wear these outfits and start carrying myself just like Fulton. And I think I did start having the.
You did go through a bit of a Fulton Sheen stage there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never picked up on that actually. That's what you were doing.
Yes, sir. Low brow. He speaks so well.
He is great. If you don't know who Fulton Sheen is,
So this one as well.
He's a bishop from the 1950s and 60s. He's worth looking up on YouTube. Google some Fulton Sheen. You won't regret it.
What kind of devotion is directed to the Holy Virgin?
It is a singular kind of devotion which differs essentially from the cult of adoration given only to the Most Holy Trinity. This special veneration directed to Mary finds particular expression in the liturgical feasts dedicated to the Mother of God and in Marian prayers such as the Holy Rosary, which is a compendium of the whole gospel. So what we direct to Mary is not the same as the worship we direct to God. Obviously, we
It's
venerate
also not
her.
the same as an ordinary saint.
Yeah, I mean, so like, for example, in the Anglican tradition.
Or it is the same, it's more so.
It's exactly, right? And so you'll go to churches in England and it'll be like St. Mary's or whatever, right? Like, and that's a common sort of thing. And it's like, oh, well, that's because the English Catholic stuff just referred to her as St. Mary, basically, because that's what she is. She is a saint.
Santa Maria.
Exactly.
199. In what way is the Blessed Virgin Mary the eschatological icon of the church?
Looking.
Can you tell me what eschatological means here? Eschatology, eschaton, end of the world?
Yeah, the eschaton is the end of time.
Right.
So when we're talking about the eschatological icon, we're saying, how is she an icon of the end of time?
Anyone who could pose the question in that way would already have a working answer.
That's a very good point, and that's true of a lot of the
Can't
questions.
believe it took me 199 of these to come up with that as the fundamental difficulty with the style here.
Look, it's not perfect.
In what way is
Yeah.
the Blessed Virgin Mary the eschatological icon of the church?
Looking upon Mary, who is completely holy and already glorified in body and soul, the church contemplates in her what she herself is called to be on earth and what she will be in the homeland of heaven. So, again, a complicated way of asking the question. The simple answer is like, Mary sums up in her life, in her assumption, and in her glorification in heaven, the life that the Christian is called to, right? So she's the first Christian in the sense that she's chronologically first Christian, but also that her whole life is a promise of what we will receive.
And we see in her life maybe what life in heaven will be like.
Exactly, yeah. And the fact that she is already crowned in heaven as the Queen of Heaven, then we kind of know that, like, well, this is what we're looking towards, right? So she's...
What's that in Luke?
What?
Have we got that through visions?
Yeah, I mean, that's a...
Is it in Revelation?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of in Revelation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We give her a big crown on all the statues.
We
but
do
this
give her a
was
big
like,
crown, yeah. She's not wearing a crown in that one, but she should.
How utterly dare we not have a crown for the Queen of Heaven?
I've given her a crown of light.
Nice.
Nice, dude.
Nice.
Yeah.
But we believe she's been crowned. There was a coronation.
Yeah, I mean that's the last mystery.
Presumably some sort of parade.
I hope there was a parade.
Did Katy Perry sing?
People are going to be watching this out of time. The coronation of King Charles was just last weekend, so that's what...
Do you want to hear my poem about it?
I'd love to hear a poem about it.
Really?
Yeah, let's have a little interlude for your poem.
I'm so excited. Oh, not that poem. Not that poem. Here it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's called After It Has Been Evacuated.
Okay.
I love the King of England. He seems very nice. God save the King of England and his perfectly adequate wife. God save the King of England. God save pomp and circumstance. And God save great big statues and visiting dignitaries from subcontinental lands. God bless the machine gun, and God bless big fat sailors. God bless beautiful hats and an even mix of genitalias. Don't you love the monarchy with their golden carriages? I love our lovely monarchy, their funerals and marriages. They've got so many horses, and wouldn't it be a shame if Republicans had their way and horses were not seen again? Weak and sad Republicans with suits and a sense of proportion. What a sad grey world you live in, where we all get an even tiny portion. And no one ever gets to see something grand as a coronation. Personally, I hope somebody blows up the United Nations. I wasn't comfortable putting that one on the gram.
I like it. That's a good one. That's one of your better poems, James.
To life.
All right.
I believe in the forgiveness of sins.
That's excellent.
200. How are sins remitted?
Yeah, so now we're going to...
Like it's a tax return.
Now we're going to pump through the final little statements in the creed here. So, yeah, this is after...
That's what we've been doing.
That is what we've been doing. So, how is sins remitted? The first and chief sacrament for the forgiveness of sins is baptism. For those sins committed after baptism, Christ instituted the sacrament of reconciliation or penance, through which a baptized person is reconciled with God and the church. So, this isn't talking about the sort of like internal mechanisms of how the sacraments work. It's just sort of saying generally, how do we get sins remitted? How do we have our sins forgiven? Baptism and confession.
I love confession.
I know you do. You should also love baptism.
I just don't remember mine. But I notice people crying when it happens. And
well, you've had children baptized.
Yeah, but I'm sort of worried about what's happening with the child. When you're the parent, there's a technical dimension that comes into it, and the godparent.
Yeah.
I assume there will come a time when the full resonance of baptism and what that is, and joining. Also, it's so run down because like so many people are baptized, and it's nothing important. Like,
well, in our community, they are. Yeah. Not in all communities.
Fair. You make a good point. That's a sneaky callback to people who can pay attention to the episode. Depending on what gets left in on the edit. No, but like I'll go to like a cathedral and they'll do the baptism. Like there'll just be a baptism tacked onto the mass that day, and people will have come along who obviously don't
care.
Well, then they don't go very often, you know. But it's important to them that there is a baptizing, or someone in their family needs
christening.
A baptism.
Is something that people always say. I don't know why people use that word.
Christening.
I hate that word.
Christening. You hate that? Well, you really
no,
do?
Well, no, because people say, "Oh, I'm going to a christening."
Like it's a boat.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
God,
we're going to smash a bottle of champagne over the...
I'm just saying, every now and again. Obviously wouldn't. But you know what I'm saying.
It'd have to be a very thin bottle of champagne. Yeah.
WWE champagne.
That's right, yeah.
They don't do the chairs anymore.
They don't?
Yeah, after the Benoit unpleasantness.
I don't know anything about it, but...
He killed his family. Hey, 201, why does the church have the power to forgive sins?
The church has the mission and the power to forgive sins because Christ himself has conferred it upon her. Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained. So this is just a very basic, like, why does the church think that it can forgive sins? Because Christ said to the apostles in the upper room, do this.
But can't we just, let people be gay and just let that one go? Whatever sins you want to let go, you can let go. So that's not a sin anymore. And now that we've developed to a new understanding.
It's not, you get to define what a sin is, unfortunately.
Great. Interesting.
Yeah. If only some of our bishops knew that, we'd be in a better spot. But yeah, no, it's definitely not that. It's if you forgive these sins, they are forgiven. But they are sins.
But if you don't forgive them,
they're still not sins.
But people can still come to the church. I mean, we don't turn anyone away who wants to make a good confession.
No, we don't. But like...
Have we?
Baptism is a tricky one.
Oh, we deny baptism?
Well, I mean, under certain circumstances, you might. Yeah. So, for example, if you're a priest in a parish and, like Joe and Sue rock up and they brought little baby Tommy along and they want to get little baby Tommy baptized and you say, why do you want your child to be baptized? And they say, because we really want to get him to the Catholic school here. And he says, well, do you have any intention of raising little Tommy as a Catholic? And they say, no, we're going to raise little Tommy as a little girl instead. You know, like the priest might well go, well, I actually, you know, and that's a hard line to walk because you don't want to deny the child salvation, but also you know this child is not going to get a Christian life, not be given the opportunities to.
You suspect.
Yeah, but I mean, if they straight up tell you is all I'm saying. And so this is the tricky thing. I mean, this is a topical thing in Australia. I suspect in America as well. But like, what do you do with gay couples who come to your church and ask for their child to be baptized? Because it's sort of like puts the issue front and center, right? Which is that these people are obviously not living a Christian life or even pretending to. So like, and that's kind of different to somebody who's...
Because the pretending to is important.
Well, I mean, it is kind of... Yeah, I mean...
No, I agree. Like,
but obviously there's a pastoral sense in which like, okay, somebody who's been divorced and remarried is like living a structurally sound life.
This is a trick I like to play a lot, is diverting to the wacky example that people would go, why would you even care about that? But you go, like, the gay thing attracts so much heat. But when you just bring it down to even like, oh, there's a man who was divorced and he's with a new wife. What do you do then? Yeah, that's a problem too.
It is a problem too. Yeah, absolutely. But the difference between that problem is that like, okay, well, we know that the child is going to get a witness of a type of relationship that even though we know that the relationship itself is not good, it's a type of relationship that is, right? Like two people committed to each other or whatever, even if this is like not a marriage, and that they're actually simulating marriage because he's already got another marriage, you know, all this sort of stuff. But that makes it a lot harder to even lie to yourself about or cover over.
What's our policy? Is it
there's actually no real sound policy. It's still being worked out because it's obviously also a new thing. Because then the question is like, why do these people want the child baptized?
No-fault divorce has been around for a while.
No-fault divorce has been around for a while, and there's been a sort of like, I think, you know, people want to err on the side of going, well, we want to baptize the child.
Yeah. You can also just baptize your own child.
You can, yes.
So this is not like confession or the Eucharist in that it's something that the church has an exclusive. The priests don't run.
The church would encourage you not to baptize your own child unless they're in danger of death.
We would acknowledge, however, as valid, if not licit.
Yes.
Am I getting that the right way around?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I've been in trouble before.
No, you are.
That baptism. So if someone were to say, think that a baptism had been done in an invalid way during a priest's performing the baptism, and then like smuggle that child into another room and do their own little sneaky baptism.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying that anyone can baptize.
Yeah, well,
like the unbaptized can baptize.
Yeah, we'll deal with baptism more in depth. Okay. But yes, anyone can baptize. But in that sense,
just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and it's also that it's the church that offers you baptism, right? Like, and the reason that it should be done ordinarily within the context of a church, of the Catholic Church, is because you want to give that person a solidity to their life, right? Like, because you're not going to sin necessarily, but like you probably will.
Sure.
So you need a community around you of people who are like-minded believers, people who are trying to live the right way.
Oriented.
Exactly.
Why doesn't the church limit who can baptize? Do we get to that? Like, why doesn't the church say only a priest will be able to baptize?
Well, so the church does in its internal law. It says only a priest should.
No, but the church we acknowledge as valid.
Yeah.
Baptisms from anybody.
Yes.
Done to the correct formula.
Yes.
Why?
Not because it's not in the church's capacity to say...
That's just the way it is?
That's just the way it is. This is what the sacrament is.
Why have we discerned that that's the way it is?
Because it's the sacrament of salvation, right? Like, it's the one sacrament that you essentially need to get into heaven. And so if, like, Christ could not have put that in the hands solely of a small amount of people to do, right? Like, we don't actually really need... any of the other sacraments. I mean, we do, right? Like if we're going to live...
Right, but if you're on your deathbed and you want to get one, that's the one you want.
That's the one you want. Well, that's the only one that matters.
But we could just drive, we could bless the rains down in Africa and do a baptism that way, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's a funny story of, I don't know how true this is, probably apocryphal, but of Charlemagne. Have you heard this?
No.
When he converts and he wants all the Franks to convert. he makes all of his armies walk through a river, and he's got a bunch of bishops upstream just blessing. It's like they're all just getting baptized through a river, man. Like
That sounds like a very Charlemagne.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's apocryphal or not, but like, yeah, I mean, those are not. You're not the first person to think about that. Yeah,
We can just baptize everybody right now.
yeah, but so the church also says like forcible baptisms are not good, right? Because obviously you've got examples of like
When did the church come to that conclusion?
quite early.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But the state has insisted on it.
Yeah, and obviously people do the wrong thing all the time, right? So in the 16th century, for example, in Spain, you have like the forced baptisms of Jews. We baptize you, and now you're a Christian, and you have to be held to Christian laws, all that sort of stuff.
Are we calling that forced baptism?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Well, but it was like you have the choice to either be baptized or
Die.
lose everything, or die, But I remember, when people weren't forced to have a vaccine in our society.
Yeah, I mean, that was wrong.
But would we call that forced vaccines?
I would.
I wonder what history will do with that. How long has this episode been running for? 35. Okay,
No, we got time. We got time.
All right. Now, I believe in the resurrection of... I've become so much more... maybe I just smell where the wind's going, but I'm so bullish on the vaccine. Having been vaccinated, I am fucking... I don't care.
Yeah, it's because your blood is thick and sluggish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only got so much time left.
That's
I
right.
got to squeeze it all in. Look.
Anyways, let's move on, James, to...
I'm not even saying that there's anything wrong with the vaccine. I just think we shouldn't have been coerced that way. That's all. That's my official position.
Wow, you
202.
really think that I'm going to disagree with that, don't you? Yeah.
I just think the state got that one skew-if. What is the meaning of the term body or, quote-unquote, flesh? We're doing now, I believe in the resurrection of the body.
Yep.
And what importance does it have?
So the resurrection of the flesh is the literal formulation in the Apostles' Creed for the resurrection of the body. The term flesh refers to humanity in its state of weakness and mortality.
I thought it meant skin.
The flesh is the hinge of salvation, says Tertullian.
What?
The flesh is the hinge of salvation. We believe in God, the creator of the flesh. We believe in the word made flesh in order to redeem flesh. And we believe in the resurrection of the flesh, which is the fulfillment of both the creation and the redemption of the flesh.
You ever heard that thing where you can't have the word itself in the definition of the word?
Yes.
I feel like flesh is getting a workout in this definition of flesh. So it's just the resurrection of the flesh is the literal formulation in the Apostles' Creed of the resurrection of the body. Okay. So it's just your...
So just say
your body.
Substitute body here.
Okay. The hinge of salvation?
Yeah. So the body is the
mean?
hinge of salvation.
What's the door?
The door is Christ, but like...
What's the archway? What are the two rooms?
It's just saying that... So like, what's the mechanism by which this moves?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And the mechanism by which this moves is our flesh.
The engine.
And why is it our flesh? Because God became a man.
Okay.
And it's only by adopting humanity that God is able to save us, and that our bodies are able to be redeemed and restored to what they're meant to be.
Right, and that you're able to live a godly life in the flesh.
Yeah, because Christ has...
And there's nothing inherently wrong with having a body. Your body
Right.
is not disgusting.
So, yeah, exactly. And so whereas it's coming from, like, it's attempting to respond to a sort of dualism of
Yeah.
like, oh, well, Christ is an idea, an abstraction, he's a disembodied spirit or something like that. I'm fine, thank you. So it's your body is a good thing. You're not like, I mean, St. Paul talks about like we have to go to war with the flesh. You're drinking that like a baby.
I'm sensitive.
Like Trump drinks a glass of water. So, but like even though we say, okay, yes, we do have to go to war with our flesh, with our instincts, right? Like with our viciousness, our concupiscence.
Dualism. It's dualism.
It's our flesh is not a bad thing, and it's not like we have to like destroy our bodies or anything like that, right? Our body is a good thing.
Keep your dick on.
Yeah.
But Christ also says, like if your hand is causing you to sin, cut it off.
Yes, he does. Yeah. But he's not saying that your body is a bad thing, right? He's just saying if your body is causing you to sin, then discipline your body.
Well, it's a little more. He's not saying give it a little slap. He says cut it off.
He says, I mean, I don't want to be trite here, but he does say a lot of things, right? Like he says, like, I come to bring a sword and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of swords in Christendom.
He says if you see, the splinter in another man's eye.
He says a lot of things.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can't take everything out of context.
That one seems in context.
Well, sure. I mean, if your hand caused you to
If he says, like, if your hand causes you to go to the movies and you go like, oh, that's a metaphor, that's a metaphor. He says, literally, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off, it is better.
Sure, but then he also restores the... Yeah, and
That is, I guess, the second half of it, where he's like, it's better lose your hand than not go to heaven.
Yeah, exactly, right? But also, like, I don't want to, like, be dismissive of anything that Christ says, but all I'm saying is, like, there's a context for that. I'm not against, like, corporal or capital punishment, right? Like, in principle...
This is an earlier version of the Catechism.
It is. And the church is not saying, like, your bodily integrity is the most important thing in the world.
There we go. Your spiritual integrity is the most important.
Yeah, but also your body is important,
should be
right?
A hinge for that salvation.
But also, so, like, where do you... like, so, for example,
Yes.
like, why is it so despicable to a Christian mind to incinerate somebody's body, right?
Out of respect.
Not just respect, but because like we're talking about the resurrection of the flesh, and it's like, oh well, because it's an attempt by us to destroy the very vessel of this person's soul and this person's salvation.
I mean, obviously we love the flesh. Like, we'll take a bit of your knuckle bone, and people will come and look at it and kiss it.
Yeah, but like
you've been a good man.
But I'm saying, like, symbolically, there's an action there of like the destruction of a body that is, it flies in the face of this thing that we're talking about, which is the resurrection of the body, that your body is the means of your salvation and redemption. Yeah. Because Christ has adopted a body.
I want so badly for people to come and touch my skull when I die. I want to be I want to be such a good man that they
put your skull on a big tower so everybody can see it.
Behind like a glass dome, and nonnos are coming and going, there's the skull of the Sancto James. It was incorrupt. They say it was incorrupt.
But then we cut him up.
The people in Napoli wanted the eyes. But then like what's holding me back from that? Obviously there's like a prideful thing where it's like, I want that to happen in my body. I almost had them keep my foreskin after a certain operation, but I was not in a... But it's like, but I choose... Concupiscence gets in the way of people, venerating my bones. I want my bones to be venerated.
Can we move on to the next question? I'm deeply uncomfortable.
I'm just telling you what I want. If people are like, let's bury James, and some people are like, let's cut him up.
Now we've got it on record. We wanted to cut him up.
I mean, if you can keep all of me in one place, that would be crazy. But that would probably be a sign that I wasn't one of the better saints.
Yeah.
The best saints are all chopped up.
The best saints are all chopped up.
St. Peter and Paul, they're all in one piece?
Yeah, sort of.
I'm just saying we hold the flesh in esteem. There's a part of that that's integral to who you are as a person. And this, when I became a Catholic, I pushed back against this.
You didn't like it?
I bristled, and I've come to love it.
You didn't like the fact that we did weird shit to people's dead bodies?
I can't say that was one of the things that got me in the door. But I've come to really be very fond of that. And I feel like in Australia especially, like if you're in Europe,
it's pretty common, yeah.
Well, you just go down the road and you're like, Saint Vildeforth's middle finger. We got that. And that it's nice to be around like the living...
Yes.
Not living, but having a living tradition around like people
actually,
who have died.
In every altar,
though,
there are
in every
relics.
altar.
Yeah. So it's just that we don't see them, that we think that. But like there are very small relics, obviously.
Is there a relic directory in Adelaide?
Not really. No, that's not how it's managed. It's complicated.
But if I would like a database of relics that I could go to.
Yeah, that would exist. Yeah.
But I don't even know who's in our altar.
Pius X, Saint Teresa of Lisieux.
Okay. Cameraman Sam is losing it.
Who else
We've
is
got
in
a
our
pope
altar?
in the altar every
I think we
week.
got 2 popes in our altar.
What are you talking? Like, are you actually saying that fragments of their
Get in
body-
here. Get in here.
Yeah.
Get in your altar. No, it doesn't need to.
No, I've already
Yeah.
had. I've already had this revelation.
Cameraman
Yeah.
Sam is asking, are there fragments of
Fragments
dead
of that
saints in
pope's
our
body is
altar? Yes,
on
there
the
are.
altar that we're at every
Yeah.
week. But like that reaction is why we do it, because it's you go what?
Is that just in like Latin Mass?
No. That's in every
Altar has relics of
That's
saints.
such a shame that like we would like, you know what I mean? That's going to the guitar players as well.
It is also going to the guitar players, yeah. But it's because like mass is offered on those altars, right? Like the Eucharist is confected on that altar. So so this comes from the catacombs, right? Like in Rome, you'd have like the persecutions or whatever, so Christians get killed, and then they go, oh well, like Sam got killed by the Romans for being a Christian, so we'll take his body, right? Because we believe in the resurrection of the body, and we're going to preserve it. So we'll put it in the catacomb. So you go under the ground, you go into your tunnel, you put him in the, basically coffin. And then it's like, well, the Romans are also trying to kill you, so you've got to say mass somewhere. What are you going to say? We'll say on top of Sam's coffin, right? Because like that's a good place to put it. He died a holy death. And then somebody else wants to go off somewhere else and start a community. Oh, well, actually, we'll give you a bit of Sam's arm to take with you, right? Because then it's like, now you're praying with Sam as well, right? He was there. You saw him die in the Colosseum. You get to bring a part of him with you, put it in the altar. You're saying mass with him now. And then that whole thing just keeps going.
So in the materials of the altar, like the altar being the big desk at the front,
Yeah.
there are
There's a little hole. There's a little hole in the.
So there's an
middle.
altar stone, and in the stone will be embedded in the stone will be the relics of the saints.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Some
sort
of
of.
them are, sometimes.
Depends on the stone. Yeah. But so, like, for example, when you deconsecrate a church, the thing you do is you take the stone out, right? And now it's not an altar anymore. It's just a table because there's no saints in it. Yeah. So every altar will have an altar stone.
Good Friday. Do we take the altar stone out?
No, because it's fixed in for most altars. But so, for example, you've also got like mats, like so they're like basically rolled up pieces of cloth with like relics in it, and that was originally for.
So that's what I was thinking. So the stone is it like is it in the stone or is it under the
It's
stone?
in the stone. Yeah.
In the stone. Like how do we do that? Concrete?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you have a little mat, and you use that chaplains will use that in
If you're-
wars and
if
stuff.
you're on the road.
Yeah. So, well, it's specifically for hardship, but that way you've got a portable altar, basically. So, yeah, we take the body stuff pretty seriously.
We love the flesh.
We love the flesh. It's all about the flesh, baby. It's the hinge of salvation.
Well, then what's meant by the resurrection of the body?
This means that the definitive state of man will not be one in which the spiritual soul is separated from his body. Even our mortal bodies will one day come to life again. So so we talked about this before already. The separation of the soul and the body is what we call death. Mm-hmm. And the final state, what's intended for us and what's promised to us in the resurrection, is that our souls and our bodies will be reunited.
You think cripples get new powerful legs?
I believe the theology of this is correct.
thin in heaven?
So yeah, I mean, essentially the idea is that like
heaven to me if I'm as fat as I am now.
you'll be perfected, and if you have, for example, like your leg is cut off or something like that,
you get it back.
yeah, because if like
Saint
so we talk about
Teresa, is she the eye lady?
no,
Who's the eye? Lucy, Saint Lucy.
yeah, Saint Lucy
Who had her eyes
gouged out,
and is at the back of our mass.
holding her eyes on a plate.
In the church, yeah, she's holding her eyes on a plate, but she's also got her eyes in her head.
Yeah,
And I asked Father about that once. I said, why is she holding her eyes and she's got her eyes? And
Yeah.
he said, Italians, man.
well, I mean, it's also like if you cut your toenails and all sort of stuff, and like
You get your toenails back.
yeah, exactly. So I mean,
Seems different.
it is different because that's like dead stuff. But when you were asking about the somebody who's disabled,
Yeah.
right? Like we would say, and this is going to be controversial and probably upsetting some people. We would say they are disabled, right? Like they have a disorder in them, which we all do, right? And that's just physically manifested in them. But they would have a perfected thing. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with them now, right? Like, it's not saying that because there's something wrong with all of us.
There's necessarily more wrong
Exactly.
or uniquely wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, obviously
Yeah.
everything's wrong.
There's something not good there,
You
right?
can't-
that we would desire.
You can't
otherwise.
fly or float through a wall. That's wrong. Like, there's something wrong about our current state
Yes.
that will be remedied.
Yes, exactly. So those things will be remedied. And so the pious belief, right, is that Christ died at 33, so we'll get our bodies back from when we're 33. Well, what if you died before then? All that sort of stuff.
It seems like men should get their bodies back at 33.
Well, I was bald at 33, so I certainly hope it's earlier. I don't want to be
No, I'm just
bald
saying,
for all
like,
eternity.
we have different-
It's cold,
Men
man.
and women have different ages that we would say is like the peak. And like, I don't think a lot of women who are 33 would go like,
I mean, look, it's all a mystery.
this is what I want forever.
It's all a mystery, right? Like, it's the thing. Like, we don't
They
know.
complain about it a lot, is what I'm saying. Like, women in their late 20s are whinging about it. I'm not saying, I think women of any age are beautiful. Not any age. Excuse women. Women of any age.
Dig up, stupid.
Now, what's the relationship between the resurrection of Christ and our resurrection?
Just as Christ is truly risen from the dead and now lives forever, so he himself will raise everyone on the last day with an incorruptible body.
Nice.
Those who have done good will rise to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation.
Suck it. 205. What happens to our body? Do you have more you want to say?
No.
All right. What happens to our body and soul after death?
After death, which is the separation of the body and the soul, the body becomes corrupt, while the soul, which is immortal, goes to meet the judgment of God and awaits its reunion with the body when it will rise transformed at the time of the return of the Lord. How the resurrection of the body will come about exceeds the possibilities of our imagination and understanding.
It's a big,
So-
we don't know.
It's a big we don't know.
Somehow,
Somehow
but it will be that body.
Yes.
Right.
It will
So
be
if you
this body.
have been consumed by flame, those atoms are miraculously going to
Reconstituted.
reconstitute.
Well, and obviously, like,
even though a lot of your atoms, you know, used to be somebody else.
well, obviously, like, your body will, like, degrade in the ground, right? Like, it will. It's
Not true. It's true. It's like
obviously even if
Love atoms. Big atom guy.
cells.
Sorry.
I love Adam
DNA.
and Eve.
Atom.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it often comes back to atoms for me.
So obviously, your body in the ground, if you're buried, will corrupt and decay, right? Because all things corrupt and decay in this life. So it's not like we're not saying that there's. It's not that like, oh, okay, if your body is burned, that's it, you're done. Like, you have no chance of it. What we're saying is like, so for example, I think we'll get to this later.
He'll figure it out.
Why do we say that what do you call it when you burn somebody's body? Cremation.
Crime.
Why do we say that cremation is wrong? Right, that we encourage Catholics not to do it because it's a denial symbolically of the resurrection of the
Right,
body.
but it doesn't actually nullify.
No, right? Because obviously, like, if you're captured in a war and somebody burns your body because they hate you, that doesn't mean
you don't have that power over
you're
God.
stuffed. Exactly. Yeah. So but it's just like, oh, if I'm
Don't do that. That's gross.
if I'm choosing to do it, it's a different thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
so much cheaper to burn them. That was one of the calls we did for quality and training purposes. Was calling a crematorium and asking them to not do that anymore. And they were like, "Do you know how much it costs to bury a body?"
Yeah,
Like,
it's very expensive
10
for everybody.
grand.
Yeah. Not even, dude. It's a lot more than that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Well, Victoria was
Right.
it was something like that. I don't know.
Anyway, so let's just do this last question and finish it up.
I had something I wanted to say, but we'll talk
I'm
about it in the
sorry.
break. 206. What does it mean to... this will be a brief one. What does it mean to die in Christ Jesus?
Dying in Christ Jesus means to die in the state of God's grace without any mortal sin. A believer in Christ, following his example, is thus able to transform his own death into an act of obedience and love for the Father. This saying is sure. If we have died with him, we will also live with him, says 2 Timothy. That's it. That's it. So the next part, which I think we'll not do now because it's a bit meaty.
State of God's grace without any mortal sin.
Yeah. And again, we're going to do more in mortal sin. We're going to do more in state of grace.
Have we done mortal sin yet? I don't think we...
No, not really. Yeah. We've talked about it, but we haven't gone through the parts of it. And that comes later, right? That comes in the virtues and commandments and stuff.
But it's in the name. Like, it's mortal. It's death sin.
It's a sin that kills grace in your soul. It's
Yeah.
mortally...
that prevents you from living in God.
Yeah. So if you're a Catholic and you're baptized and you die without God's grace because you've committed a sin and you haven't repented for it, then we say that's pretty bad. But if you die in God's grace, then you're dying in Christ Jesus.
And that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Catechast.
Pew!